I'm recording this in the fall of 2017 while almost everyone in Sweden is cowering in fear from the Twitter storm raging just outside their screens in cyberspace. Sweden has been more blessed or cursed, depending on your point of view, by the METOO phenomenon than any other country on earth. If you don't believe me, please look in the description below this episode on Patreon. There's a link to Patreon in the description below this episode regardless what platform you're listening on. Please take the time, I urge you. Because I fear my description will not do it justice. There you will see a Google Trends map of the entire world, mapping out country by country the Google statistic for the search term METOO. Countries range in color from grey to different shades of blue according to how much the search term is used. Sweden is Yvklein blue. When I'm first shown this picture, Sweden has the value 100, and in a distant second place looms the Netherlands with only 38 points. A drab blue so boring it's hard to look at. 2 days later, Sweden is still at 100, and now Norway has taken second place with a score of only 17. Norway is approaching grey, while we are still the color of a very healthy smurf, proving Sweden is uniquely affected by the METOO phenomenon. It is astounding and a bit embarrassing. In Denmark, they just laugh at us Swedes. They call what is going on here svenskerier, Swedishness. If it sounds a bit like craziness, it's supposed to. That's the point. So how come the most feminist country in the world at the same time have the most rapes and sexual harassment? After all, we have a feminist government. According to itself, the first feminist government ever. We have a feminist foreign policy, and we gave women the vote before any other country on earth. So how can a country that has included gender perspective in school from kindergarten to university and beyond be the most misogynistic? The usual argument for this is, the fact that Sweden is the most progressive country in the world might make us a bit more open to talk about things like this, and that we, because of this, have a higher reported rate than most other countries who naturally are equally bad or most probably worse. And sure, that could explain some of the phenomenon. But over 650 Swedish singers signed a METOO petition, over 450 actresses. When the actresses gathered for a large manifestation at the city-run theatre in Stockholm, members of the royal family was there. As the actresses read confessions of harassment and abuse they had been subjected to in their workplace, it was televised and held in English for the whole world to see. I really hope you watched it. Over 4,500 lawyers have their own petition, which sounds like quite a lot, but I checked the numbers and apparently SACO, an organization for lawyers, says there are 35,000 people working in the sector today, and half of them are female. That's 17,500, and 4,500 of that is just about 25.7%. So maybe we should ask why 74.3% of female lawyers didn't sign the petition. Are roughly 75% of female lawyers pro-rape and sexual harassment? And now more than 4,000 journalists have signed their own petition. At public service, that's what we Swedes call our state-owned television and radio channels. The journalist clubs in all branches are calling to workshops where their petition will be read every half hour. Come, read, think, and battle sexism and different forms of harassment with us. Individuals of all genders are welcome. We that arrange this are the club chairmen of SVT, UR, and SR. That's the different branches of TV, educational programming, and radio. And then it goes on. And we would very much want to form a task force to continue to work on this question. Since the 14th of November, the unions are involved, promising to battle sexual harassment business sector by business sector. Apparently 60% of the young female workers in the industrial sector have been sexually harassed. 60%. At least according to the Metal Workers Union chairperson, Marie Nilsson. An astoundingly high figure, especially to happen on a female boss's watch, one could note. On the 16th of November, the state prosecutor officially recognized the importance of the METOO campaign for the justice system itself, thus suspending habeas corpus, which, among other things, would guarantee you the right to know what you are accused of and who your accuser is, a fundamental principle in most Western justice system, but rather new to Sweden, I'm afraid. Though it has been made into Swedish law by the European Convention of Human Rights. It was made into law 1994:1219. Now it's null and void. And sure, there are a few voices that are concerned that this might be creating an informer society. A society where anyone can accuse anyone else of being a rapist or a deviant, where lynch justice rules the land. Reactionaries who don't understand that the moment is finally here, the perfectly equal and just society is just around the corner. All it needs is this little final push. We're doing it to get rid of sexual predators after all, and if that costs a few wrongful accusations, a few people who get fired to never find work again, a few more innocent lives ruined in the process, then so be it. Utopia will have been worth it. But it still doesn't answer the question why Sweden, the most feminist country in the world, is at the same time the country most plagued by hatred against women. We have been applying gender science in schools, modulating female behavior to be more like boys, to break the norms, and boys to be, well, less like boys for 30 years now. And sure, the boys' grades are lower than ever. They even suck at math and physics now, but the girls are fucking awesome, so it's not like we haven't sacrificed for feminism. We have gender certified the military, the police department, medicine. Don't ask me how, but apparently biology finally came around to the Swedish way of looking at it. And why is it first and foremost women in media and entertainment and law, powerful women with high education, part of our elites, that seem to have the worst problems? These people, after all, belong to the most privileged group of people that ever lived. And why now? Sweden has, after all, had a real rape epidemic for a few years now, not talked about, not demonstrated against, no hashtags or task forces or group hugs. For decades, women in the suburbs have been complaining of moral police roaming the streets to make sure they cover up and behave like proper women. When a woman in a wheelchair was raped by migrants in a toilet stall in Gotland, and the locals started protesting for justice, the media, the entertainment industry, and the justice system called them a lynch mob and racist. And maybe they were. But what in that case is the difference? I think that it is precisely because of this that we're in our current situation. Now, sex is the driving force and the most dangerous drive in human nature. Almost everything we do is subconsciously done for procreation. Basically, we're all horny animals. It is not pretty. We want it to be pretty, which is why we invented romance, to make it look pretty, but it's not. Before Freud, human sexuality was frowned upon. Both male and female had to hide their sexual urges, deny that they were sexual beings, which wasn't very healthy either and not much fun. Freud's theories helped, for a lack of better words, to liberalize sex, from being shameful and base to something to be enjoyed and celebrated. Hooray! No longer was it the priests or your family that decided who you should have sex with, but you. You got to decide for yourself. Now, the only way this could work was that everyone saw themselves as an individual and took personal responsibility for their actions. Not that it really matters. Every advancement, every attempt at friendship or love, in every culture, in every time, is always a sort of negotiation. I like you, do you like me? Can I give you something? Can I touch you there? Can I put this fist here? You know. Never more so than in the Western world from Freud and on. Ever since the sexual liberation, it is incumbent on every individual, regardless of gender or sexuality, to take responsibility for their own actions and to listen and to apologize if necessary. And if you really love someone, it will probably become necessary as you get to know each other better. The thing is, it is a huge gray area. Some things you thought you'd like, you won't. And some things you thought you'd hate, you might end up craving the most. Like molded cheese. But if you make mistakes, take it with the person you wronged, if it's not too serious. It is only children who always need grown-ups to intervene, and grown-ups who wants the state to intervene in their sex lives, well, let's just say I will reserve my judgment. The hippie cry from 1968 for free sex was something else. That was not free sex. They wanted to free sex from responsibility, which was doomed to failure. As I told you, the human sex drive is a dangerous animal. It has to be well trained or kept on a leash. What METOO and the new definitions of what constitutes sexual harassment does is a direct attack on free sexuality, or like one of my female friends called it, life. It's an attack on life. Because that's what that gray area is. The things that aren't black or white, where disappointment and hurt and shame lies, but also excitement, creativity and novelty. I have been watching this movement since I first encountered it in my early 20s. It made me wary because of its clear totalitarian ideology. I have reported on it and studied it as part of my profession. And they all believe in this triangle. like most conspiracy theorists, where everything is connected. At the bottom of the triangle is inappropriate jokes, sexist slurs, unconscious but norm-reinforcing behavior. And at the top is rape and murder. It's all part of the same structure, so if I laugh at a rape joke in Stockholm, then Cassandra gets raped in Syria by some sort of if a butterfly flutters its wings in China, there's a hurricane in Brazil type logic. Just in this campaign, I've seen one of the movement's leaders say on national TV that it's important that we view an unwelcome text message or joke as the same as rape because it creates the same feeling in what she calls the victim, which is relativizing rape like hell. And she got to do it without the host asking a single critical question on state television funded by citizens. And like all extreme and/or utopian movements, I'm not surprised that it has turned out like this. When we talk about extremists of other sorts, like white supremacists, we know that we need a defection program in place. And when we talk about racists or Islamists, we always say that what they aim to do with this attack or that attack is to erase the gray area, the area where people of different faiths and colors can coexist. But we never talk like that about radical feminists. We should. It's equally true for them. They want to eliminate the gray area where the sexes can meet and coexist. Just as we talk about white supremacists or black supremacists, we should talk about female supremacists. Because that's what they are. Extremists. Or in this case, sextremists. After applying gender science on school children for nearly 30 years, all we have to show for it is the second highest grade gap between genders in the world. Finland beats us again, but apart from that, we're like number 2, right? So, and we have 12% of boys are diagnosed with ADHD, 6% of the girls. Suicide is at an all-time high. Gender science, a political ideology masquerading as science, telling women that they are all powerless, fragile, childlike, victims, and all men are rapists, at the same time that it states that there are no biological difference between the sexes at all. Under the auspice of gender science, academic freedom is suspended, and friends and government agencies have been given orders to report sexual harassment. What I mean by that is that the departments have to find people to report. Otherwise, they run the risk of being accused of not dealing with the problem. What is happening is creating an environment where you have to find proof of sexual harassment, otherwise you are part of the problem. If you can't find a witch, then you are the witch. My personal favorite recorded mass hysteria was the laughter epidemic of Tanganyika. It happened in 1962 in what is today Tanzania. It broke out in the village of Kashasha. In a girls' school. No comparison to what's going on in Sweden today, apart from that. It spreads from a few of the girls until everyone was affected and started laughing uncontrollably. The school had to close, but when the children were sent home, the laugh epidemic spread through the village and to villages nearby. The patients had laughing fits that could last from everything from 2 hours up to 16 days. The epidemic came and went for almost 9 months before disappearing forever. Tanzania had just won its independence, and it was later attributed to stress. But that mass hysteria was more of a laughing matter. A closer comparison to what is going on in Sweden would be the Chinese Cultural Revolution, where everyone was forced to gather in huge gymnasiums and write confessions of their anti-communist thoughts and feelings and report suspicions on their friends, family, and co-workers. That too was done to build a socialist utopia. We just have to get rid of the bad people, and it will come, they hoped. Unfortunately, it didn't create a safe, loving space. Quite the contrary, it tore the social fabric apart. It fostered suspicion, paranoia, and hate. Which sounds a lot more like what Sweden is going through at the moment. There is a syndrome called Munchausen syndrome. You might have heard of a variation of it called Munchausen by proxy. That's where usually a woman hurts her children and or her pets to get sympathy for herself. Well, Munchausen is when you give yourself an affliction. You don't have it for real, you just do it to get attention. Now let's say your state ideology is basically built on victimhood. What type of environment do you think that would foster? That is why I suggest that Sweden at the moment is in the throes of a Munchausen mass hysteria. Gad Saad may have coined the term, but I'm calling it. For a long time, we Swedes have been ignoring real problems and focusing on the patriarchy, to the extent that we now see rapists everywhere. In the end, it not only empties the word rape and sexual harassment of meaning, it is also really shitty to people who have really been raped and really been sexually assaulted. And if you then add that it destroys the justice system, creates an informer society of paranoia and mistrust, and destroys innocent lives, some for small stuff like jokes, and some maybe because they had bothered the wrong person who then decided to lie anonymously about them. I also heard another leading feminist claim that the METOO phenomenon shouldn't be politicized, but it is obvious that this has political dimensions. The left has dominated the official narrative in Sweden for a long time. A lot of those narratives are now being confronted with reality. Power, according to Alinsky, is only interested in two things: keeping power or expanding its power. As long as it manages to do that, everything is fine, but as soon as the power shrinks, the different factions and individuals will start attacking each other. What will happen is usually the weakest link will start to attack the second weakest link, and so on and so forth until it consumes itself entirely or a new equilibrium is found. That is why this predominantly is hitting the left so far. They are the ones who believes in gender science the most. They are also the ones who has forced it on everybody else and named names of politicians and leaders on the right that didn't live up to their standard of what a feminist man should be. Now their own are being hung out by themselves. At first egged on by the right because everyone was happy about the hypocrisy finally coming to an end, but by now I guess we all just stand back in horrid fascination with this ideological purgatory. But even if, when all is said and done and the unions have gone through every business sector they have a presence in, it is still not good that a small percentage of the population who participate, fooled as they are by their leaders and or their ideology, is gathering sexual blackmail information on themselves and everybody else in the country. Just like the Scientologists make you confess your secrets to keep you in the sect, or East Germany not too long ago. It could also explain why 70% of female lawyers didn't sign the petition. It's not that they are for rape and sexual harassment, no sane person is. It's probably because they can read or because they've been around the block before, so to speak, and know that empty gestures of goodness never lead to anything good. And probably quite a few sign because it is a good cause. I mean, which sane person isn't against rape and sexual harassment, as I said? It's a sign of good intentions that you think will cost you nothing, and maybe some will sign it and lie, and some will have real Munchausen syndrome, and some might have feel pressured to sign. It is performative goodness, virtue signaling, and you might think it will cost you nothing, but heaven is not right around the corner, just more blood. And all it achieves is forming an informer society, relativizing rape. That's what's going on here. They're conflating unwanted behavior with rape and sexual harassment, calling everybody a rapist until real rapists are just regular people. There are only two exceptions to freedom of speech in a civilized country, and I'm not claiming to live in one myself. Google Trends would prove me wrong. The first is when you use speech to incite violence, and calling someone a rapist is inciting violence. The other exception to freedom of speech is libel. Calling someone a rapist when they are not, or claiming that all men are party to rape just by being born in a male body, is libel. The Tanganyika laughter epidemic was later partly explained by the shared sense of losing control that becoming the sovereign nation of Tanzania meant. And maybe that can explain why white middle-class women from our elites, the most privileged group of people to ever have lived, are leading this charge right now. Sweden has, after all, had a real rape epidemic for a few years now. And women in the suburbs have been complaining of moral police roaming the streets to make sure they cover up and behave like proper Muslim women. At the same time, our leaders are calling out Me Too. Me Too. They are losing control. And maybe this is a Munchausen by proxy, mass hysteria. But in that case, we, the populace, are the proxy. This will not work. The way to improve society and ourselves is to take on personal responsibility. That means speaking out when we see something wrong, not on a message board years later anonymously, but right then and there. And I can never sign off on a feminism that doesn't tell people that they are strong, independent, and capable of taking personal responsibility for their actions. It might not be true, or it might be very hard to accomplish, but it's the only hope we have. Links to this and everything else mentioned in the conversation can and always will be found in the description below this episode on Patreon. If you live in Sweden and want to swish me and support Dekonstruktiv Criticism, just swish me at number 0768943737 0768943737. And if you want to donate some bitcoins, there will be a link under the episode on Patreon. Until next time, have a good time, unit.